Hi friends, today we are going to look at, we're going to look at volume, but we're going to take a step back. First thing, if we are measuring distance or length, what we're saying is we want to know how far it is from like point A to point B, and we need a unit. So in this case, I defined my unit as this length here, this little line here is 1 unit. Now we can measure in inches, we can measure in feet, we can measure in meters, we can measure in miles. But in this case, I'm just measuring in one of these things. Whatever that is, I'm just calling that 1 unit. So if I want to measure from A to B, what I need to do is I need to stack or lie these units next to each other and see how many it takes to get from A to B. So we see it takes 1 unit, 2 units, 3 units, 4 units. So we would say the length of AB is 4 units. Now, if we have a two-dimensional shape, so not just a line, but we have a two-dimensional shape, we can't measure it in units. We can't say how many of these little units fit inside there. We need to fill it with something else. So instead of filling it with a line, we're going to fill it with a square. So now this square, this is our 1 unit. And it's 1 unit square. So we want to know how many of those squares can fit inside our shape. That's not perfect, but you get the idea. So here it's filled up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So we say it's 15 square units. That's how we measure area. It's all about how many squares can fill up a shape. So when we're measuring distance, our unit is a line segment. We want to know how many line segments it takes to get from A to B. When we're measuring area, our unit is a square. We want to know how many squares it takes to fill up a shape. When we're measuring volume of a solid, so let's say we have a rectangular prism, we can't fill a solid up with squares because squares are flat and solids have 3 dimensions. So now our unit, instead of a square, becomes a cube. So this is now our unit. So this is 1 unit cube. And it could be 1 meter cube, 1 square cube, or 1 inch cube. It could be any unit, but so we want to know how many cubes it takes to fill this shape. And I'm going to go ahead and draw in some cubes. Okay. And we can literally count how many cubes it would take to build that shape. So let's look at this example. Okay, if we look at the top layer, now one thing about three-dimensional shapes is that we can't see all of the cubes that are stacked up. So if we just look at the top layer, how many cubes we have? Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So one layer has 9 cubes, and that includes this whole layer because this is all these sides are this other faces of that same cube. But this cake is not made up of 1 layer, but it's made up of 2 layers. So 1 layer is 9 times 2. So we would say the volume of this shape is 18 cubic units. That means it takes 18 cubes to fill up this box. This box right here. If we were to fill it up, we need 18 cubes. Okay, so let's recap again. Distance, we're saying how many line segments it takes to get from A to B. Area, we're talking about how many squares fill up a shape. Volume, we're talking about how many cubes fill up a shape. So let's look at an example. Here it shows us that's a unit cube, that's 1 unit. And we want to know how many cubes fill up this rectangular prism. So first let's start by looking at a layer. This top layer, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So one layer has 8 cubes. But how many layers does this cake have? It has 1, 2, 3. So there's 8 on that layer, 8 on that layer, 8 on that layer. 8 times 3 gives us 24 cubic units. So for right now, we're just counting the cubes. Count how many cubes are on the top layer, and then multiply it by the number of layers you have. 8 on the top layer, 3 layers, 8 times 3 is 24. Okay, and that is it for today. Good luck with your assignment.